What is up, RPG fans? In this video, we will be talking about what it would be like if Final Fantasy II got a remake like Final Fantasy VII is getting, currently has been getting. It's ongoing, obviously, with the Rebirth coming out soon and whatever Part 3 is going to be called. So I was trying to think what would happen if Final Fantasy II got a sequel like this. So if you want to see more content like this in the future, like, subscribe, and let's get right into this. So Final Fantasy II is a very divisive entry in the series, and personally, I love this game, and I think it is a very great game as a whole. Like, it's a good Final Fantasy game, it's a good game, and it set up so many of the things that would become mainstays in the series. Cid, Chocobos, it set up a whole saga series. Like, it had a lot of cool stuff going for it, and honestly, I'm one of those people who even enjoyed the leveling system. Like, I just love Final Fantasy II. So I want to talk about what it would be like if we got a full-blown remake of Final Fantasy II, and what I would love to see in a full-blown remake of this game. So first, let's discuss how we can change the story a little bit. So Final Fantasy VII Remake story has changed quite a bit, like, controversial or not. I think that it's definitely changed, but for Final Fantasy II, I don't think it needs to have huge changes. It just needs to be adapted to a modern level, because you look at characters like Fiora, Maria, and Guy, and they have about the depth of a puddle. Like, they don't really have anything going for them, really. I mean, like, the secondary characters have a good characterization, but like, what we do get from them is good. It's just not a lot. So, and getting that Fiora sprite into 3D, like actually good looking 3D. I mean, the CGI cutscene is not really or whatever that, the VFX, I don't know what type of cutscene it is, but when you boot up the game, like, I mean, it looks okay, but getting Fiora in like full modern graphics would look awesome. And I mean, I doubt this remake would ever happen, but I'll be crossing my fingers because I love this game. But getting Fiora, Maria, and Guy, like, it's a great idea. These three orphans that their family died, and they are not accepted into the war, but they're going to help anyway because they have nothing better to do, because they have nothing left. And I think it's very compelling, and I think that Fiora, Maria, and Guy all had an opportunity to be great characters, but I mean, like, you know, NES, like, limited the amount of dialogue you could have, the amount of everything you could have, because, you know, it's an NES game. And again, like, the remasters for, like, or I guess in a way kind of remakes, but not really, the remasters of like the PSP version, the GBA version, they've added good stuff, but they haven't really changed the story, the scripting at all. And I just think that adding a lot more depth to these characters, like getting backstories, getting some like cutscenes, maybe like when Fiora wakes up, like we see some of his nightmares, and the beginning, I feel like, should be a lot more interesting. Maybe we get thrown right into the action, and there's into a flashback, and we see, maybe we even get to play temporarily as like Fiora and Maria's parents, and I don't know, probably not Guy's parents, because he's kind of out in the woods, but it was like raised by wolves or whatever. But just like getting thrown right into the action, seeing what actually happened, or at least at some point in the game getting like play as that or something, and then it flashes right into, it could be like an epic intro, like Lost Odyssey, where it's like this full-on war. It would just be awesome to see that, and then getting everyone destroyed at Finn, and then cutting over to the conflict of fighting the horses, and then Leon getting captured or whatever. I think Leon getting captured could be, and I think it would be really cool to see Leon's devolvement, because into like him wanting power and stuff, because that's one of the most intriguing parts of the story of Final Fantasy II, but it's so underbaked. And maybe getting to see a kind of like in like Super Paper Mario, or I guess a lot of the Paper Mario games, like Ni no Kuni Wrath the White Witch, when it flashes over the villain, it usually does a really good job of setting up the character. So getting something like that for Leon, and maybe the Emperor, where like Leon is talking to the Emperor, like, I want to know more about what's happened to Leon, and I think that would be a very compelling place to take the story. So on top of just fleshing out our main characters, and Leon especially, I'm okay if Fia and Marie and Guy don't have way too much, because in the end, I mean, they are just these broken kids that aren't really all that happy and bumbly. But yeah, and seeing Minwoo as a fully realized like character, I mean, Minwoo's already like an awesome top tier Final Fantasy character for me, and seeing Minwoo get more dialogue, getting what this game could do, if this game could get you emotionally invested in those characters. I mean, I already really like Minwoo, I like Joseph, I like Rickard, I like Scott, but if this game was able to get you hooked on those characters, maybe getting some more party interactions, like some more like skits, like the events in like Final Fantasy IX, like seeing the party interact more often with like some sort of skits, I think that'd be really cool. So definitely more dialogue between the party members and between different characters. I think that having some more side quests would be cool. I don't know what they could potentially be, because this is a pretty streamlined story, but really just having more interaction, have more depth to the characters as a whole, because this game set up some awesome characters and some awesome set pieces, but they aren't used too well in the NES versions and the subsequent remasters. And I think that, yeah, giving a more emotional core, like if all the cutscenes could hit as hard as like Tella's death or Galuf's death in Final Fantasy IV and V, this game could be a masterpiece. Or like Bobby's death in like Paper Mario the Origami King, or, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care about Aeris's death in Final Fantasy VII, but like just getting Final Fantasy II, getting every character, like getting emotionally invested in them, and maybe seeing, even with Layla, seeing Fia and Maria and Guy, like, oh my gosh, we might never see our friend again. And I mean, some of the sprite work in the subsequent versions has done an okay job, especially with Maria showing sadness, but I mean, I don't know, I think that of any game in the series, Final Fantasy II is one that could benefit so much from a remake, just fleshing out all these characters, making emotional core, like giving every character a lot of meaning. And Leon and the Emperor are already awesome, and giving them more. Also making Borgin even more maniacal, making him more like, not like Kefka, but like kind of like Kefka, like making him even more awful would make, like, if you could make Borgin feel like how I feel about Dolores Umbridge and like Harry Potter, like this would be a masterpiece. Like the characters already, there's such a good foundation established here. Seeing more of Gordon's character arc would be awesome. Seeing him tackle death, his brother, more. Just getting more of Hilda would also be fantastic, because Hilda is awesome. Independent woman energy. She's really cool. So she's great. Getting a little more of Scott even at the beginning of the game. Maybe hearing, I don't know, or maybe just hearing more about Scott throughout the game. Just seeing Hilda react more to his death. Yeah, that'd be great. The story of the Dragoons, I think having a cutscene, I think, yeah, that would be great. Just getting a little flashback about the story of the Dragoons. Maybe a little more of a tie-in with Final Fantasy IV. I love that, like, the kid's name is like Kane or whatever. I think that could be a little cool. Maybe get some people whispering about what the extended Final Fantasy universe timeline could be. Okay, maybe we don't need that. There's some wacky time, like the Zelda timeline, oh my gosh. But yeah, really in the end, I mean, the story is already cool in Final Fantasy II. Just getting more from every character, making the Emperor even more intimidating than ever, making the destruction scene more, making the Dreadnought in full modern graphics just could be so freaky. That could be such a cool part of the game. And the dungeons in this game, in theory, are awesome. I really love some of the dungeons with, like, the Cyclone, the Dreadnought, Castle Palmatia. Like, those are awesome dungeons, and seeing those fully realized in a modern game would be awesome. Also, one thing about the dungeons, getting rid or finding a way to streamline the experience with the White and the Black Mask would be great, because that part of the game is kind of awful, where you're like going through the Mysidia Cave and the tropical island. I mean, I think that there could be, I think the tropical island has tons of potential in, like, if there's a remake of this game. But like going from Dice Cave to Mysidia Cave, the tropical island cave, like, it's just a lot of caves, and they're kind of generic. So maybe finding a different way to incorporate the mask other than the Mysidian cave could make, like, it wouldn't change too much about the overall plot or anything. And yeah, also the Mysidia Tower and the Leviathan in a remake would also be fantastic. There's so much potential in Final Fantasy II, and I love this game already, but it has a lot of potential to be even better. Fully realized characters, less meandering in the middle of the game. So yeah. Alright, what do I think about the combat? Since the story and the characters is it's a given, just like more. Oh, one more thing, Solar Rebirth needs to be part of the main story, like incorporated. Solar Rebirth was an amazing idea, and I think the Arcane Labyrinth, I would not want to see that leave, because I think a more in-depth Arcane Labyrinth would be really cool, and a Solar Rebirth would be awesome. So anyway, and yeah, Solar Rebirth, great, one of the greatest side quests in an RPG I've ever played. I love the Solar Rebirth, it's so fun. But yeah, anyway, to the combat. So what do I think of the combat system? I'm gonna do some videos of these for like Final Fantasy 8, 9, and I've challenged myself to try to think outside of the box for how I want the combat to be. I don't want to just say, oh, I just want the Final Fantasy VII Remake system, because as good as that is, like, I don't want every single game to have it. Like, I kind of got bored of the ATB system after a lot of those games. So I like when there's some evolution here. I think the Final Fantasy series is best when it's trying to evolve. Even if there are a lot of misses, a lot of times, like, it makes masterpieces. So I really do like when Final Fantasy games try something different. Because, I mean, we have Dragon Quest, games that are, like, already just staying the way they are. And for such a behemoth of a series, if it doesn't evolve, it's never going to sell for younger audiences who don't really care about the turn-based combat. And as much as that's sad, like, I'm 16, I love myself some turn-based combat, but I know like 3 people at school who give a crap about turn-based combat. Like, it's not really a huge thing. So it really does need to evolve. And I think that Final Fantasy II, I have a good idea for it. So I do want the leveling system to stay kind of the same, but I do want it to be more streamlined. I want it to be more like the Skyrim or like recent Saga games. Like, just make it more streamlined. I don't want to get rid of the customization system, because I really do like the idea of this. I think making the magic a lot less grindy, specifically, and making so that you just leveled, like, when you're fighting weaker monsters, you can still level up your sword, but just making it more like Lost Odyssey or something, or Suikoden, where when you're fighting weaker enemies, you just get less. I don't want it to be like this weird, like, battle rank thing, where, oh, when you're fighting weaker enemies, you can't level up your sword at all, because you get to a point where there's basically a soft cap, and you have no idea how to level up, or you could just hit yourself. And I get the hit yourself complaint. I don't think it's a big deal, but when that's like the only way you can really level up some of your abilities, is kind of annoying, and I found that to be kind of awful. Hitting yourself would not work. As much as I love, it's fun, it's iconic, it adds to the game's charm, hitting yourself is not going to work in a 3D remake. I just don't see how that would work. But anyway, maybe some jokes, like, by a townsperson, just to reference the fact, but I don't think it's something that could be, like, implemented well into the game. But I think that a turn-based battle system would not be it for Final Fantasy II Remake, because Final Fantasy II is a game about war and, like, its implications and a lot of just. So I think that I think Final Fantasy II, to show the scope of the game, to show what the game is all about, should have difficult combat. I think it would be cool to have a mix of, like, an action combat like in, like, Dark Souls, and like a Souls-like, mixed with Type 0's combat. I think it should be a dire combat in which it really is difficult, and it would just make for an experience that, like, a lot of people would like, because really Final Fantasy II has always been about finding strategies, like manipulating the game, trying to get those stats up. And I think that Final Fantasy II would work best as a game that is difficult. I'm not saying that it should be so difficult. I'm not saying that it should, and there should be difficulty settings, right? But I think the normal difficulty should be difficult, and I think that that would just add to the war feeling of the game. I really do like that in like Type 0, like your people feel expendable, and that really is part of the themes, the moral roots of Final Fantasy II. The idea that your characters are just these random kids that mean nothing, really. I mean, they're just orphans. They're just random kids thrown in a horrible world, and yeah. Also, yeah, just, I mean, I would like a more fully realized world, but more characters and stuff. But anyway, the idea, just having combat be this way would be awesome. Also, having the different characters actually play differently would be fantastic. Yes, give everyone everyone can level up their stats, like everyone can do that. Anyone can get any spells, but giving the players different play styles would be cool. I'm trying to think of something. Yeah, so I'm not saying Firen should only be able to have swords, but maybe giving him specific perks or something. Have some sort of extra customization on top of the stats that would make each character play differently. Because in a game, I want it to be action combat. I want it to feel like war, feel like that type of style, but that's not going to work if every character plays the same. And I do not want some garbage in Final Fantasy 15 where only the main character is playable. No, you got to be able to switch characters. No Final Fantasy 15 or 16 BS here. You got to be able to switch your characters. And I think that that would be really good to just actually have that option to be fighting the different playstyles, and having Solar Rebirth really be ingrained in the story would add more to the themes, and just getting the chance to keep playing as those characters would be great. I think we could have different places. Minwu should not play the same as Rickard. Just that doesn't make sense if we're going to be doing a remake of this game. I think that it would be really cool to have it be kind of like a Tales game where the characters feel different. And not saying that people can't level up their abilities, but maybe we find, there's a way that, Firen could be a fast, red mage hybrid. Maybe we do get a skill tree or something. Because, really, if we're just going to be doing Final Fantasy II straight up again, what's the point? So I think it would be really cool if there were some sort of skill tree or something, and Firen could go a few different routes, kind of like in Dragon Quest XI, where yes, there's the customization of it, and each character has a couple different things, but they feel different. That would be really important. And yes, the normal stats leveling up, but I think that the weapon levels can be done away with and be replaced by more in-depth, okay, maybe as I use my weapon more, I can get WP weapon points or something, and I can upgrade my weapons through a skill tree or something. Something that makes it feel more alive, and you unlock the different skills. And just, I feel like it would make it way more distinct if, let's say Firen is a red mage. You can, he can get white magic and black magic, and I really do like the Dragon Quest XI skill tree system. And I'm not saying that we should completely get rid of the customization system, but to make this game fit in a modern era, it can't just be everyone does everything. That's just not gonna work, because then what's the point of having different characters? So really just playing into those different roles could be really cool, and having Firen be a snappier, faster character with access to multiple types of magic. Maria being a black mage ranged attacker, and Guy being a tank, Minwu being the white mage. I think that, or maybe Firen is just more like a paladin archetype where he's doing fast damage, not he could be an evasion tank, with white magic, long swords or something. And Maria could have a bow, black magic, kind of be like your ranged damage attacker, whereas Fionn will be on the front lines healing and stuff. And then Guy is just your ultimate tank, doing a ton of damage, main attacker. Minwoo healing and stuff. Joseph could have some interesting abilities like monk abilities, counterattacks. He could be more of like a combo oriented character, like a glass cannon. Then like Gordon could kind of have like an Edward thing, or like Serena in Dragon Quest XI, where like he starts weak, but as he gets stronger throughout the game, then you can use him. That'd be really cool. Layla having like a very, like, if you've watched like Star Wars, Clone Wars, when I think Layla, I think her like flying around like Ahsoka. That would be super cool to just get a character that's like all over the place, having crazy like combos and stuff. That would be really cool. And getting up really close to the daggers, I think that would be cool. Leon, just complete like damage dealer, and I think that he could be someone who would just have tons of different weapon types or something. And then Scott would be a red mage, whereas like Fionn is more like a paladin. He could be like a red mage, and Rickard is a dragoon, like as he is. And just having the characters feel more distinct would, I think, make this game a bit more modern and have the game be customizable. Like the stats could still level up in the same way, but like when you level up in Dragon Quest XI, you get your level, like you get your points from leveling up, but you also get your skill points for your skill tree, kind of like that. But instead of a traditional leveling system, still you're using magic, you're using like all that stuff. I don't really know how it would exactly work, but it would be cool. And it really, I think, needs to be like a difficult game, a game that you feel every, like Final Fantasy II already does such a great job of making you feel like you're in a dark story, dark world where everything is just falling apart around you, down to every last musical motif. Just is a great job. Like 2, one of the most atmospheric games in the series to this day. Like Final Fantasy II, just you can feel the weight of the world, and it's just really cool. And just feeling that more down to the last details, even in the combat, a more dire game. I really did like. I haven't played Type 0, but I've heard about it, I've seen it, and having your characters be a bit more squishy, like that would be cool. And having it be more difficult, having it not be, I wouldn't say it should be like Dark Souls combat, but maybe having, or like Jedi Fallen Order or something like that, not where it's like not RPG at all, but it should be, I don't want it to be like a FF7, like ATB type thing. I think it should be, but it shouldn't be like 16 either. I think it should be more of like a defensive, like Fallen Order Souls-like combat system. Would be super cool for Final Fantasy II, at least in my opinion. Alright, in terms of the graphics, I think this game should look kind of like, not like too much like Final Fantasy 16, but taking the darker tones of 16 or like Strangers in Paradise would be really cool. But still not making it like too dark, because, I mean, it's dark because of the story, but the world itself isn't like super dark, if that makes sense. I don't want it to go like emo, edgy boy on us, but just like feeling the conflict, I think is a big deal. So I just wanted to bring up the graphics really quick. So yeah, again, dungeons, locations, just, get away, in terms of quality of life, get rid of the trap rooms. As much as I defend everything about FF2, I'm not going to defend the trap rooms. There's no point. I mean, we don't need random encounters. I think it could be more of a, the areas could be more open, you could see the enemies, and I mean, it wouldn't make sense to have, but like, again, I think it should feel like all out, like war, kind of. Like, I feel like there should be a lot of enemies just around, and when you're walking around like the world map. And I think there could still be like a world map, maybe in like Final Fantasy like 12 or something, where there's like open areas. I'm trying to see how a world map would work. I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will show us exactly how it'll work. Maybe it's just like Breath of the Wild, where it's just a huge map. I don't really know what we could go with, but whatever it is, it could be cool. So I think that, yeah, Final Fantasy II, the locations just need to be fleshed out more. get rid of the annoyances. Yeah, make the enemies not super bunch of random encounters, but again, should feel dire, like it should be rough. Like getting through Final Fantasy II shouldn't be an easy experience, in my opinion. I think Final Fantasy II Remake, I feel like if this were to happen, I feel like it should be hardest game in the series, hands down. Because of just the way the game is. It just makes sense. And I mean, yes, having an easier difficulty, but it should be not for the faint of heart. Because Final Fantasy II never has been for the faint of heart. It has always been a game that is like you love it or you hate it. And just having a game that is like Final Fantasy II is what it is for a reason. It is a difficult game and you gotta master it. And that's what's so cool about Final Fantasy II for me. Like once you get it, you've got it. Once you're grinding up your characters, it has some of the best grinding in the series for me because you really can personalize the stats of your characters a lot. And I still definitely want that to be here, but it shouldn't be an easygoing experience. It should be brutal, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I'm not even someone who like is obsessed with difficulty, but I just think it would work. It shouldn't be unfair difficulty. Like I said, it should be like a Dark Souls or something where once you master it, it feels so fulfilling. And it feels like, oh my gosh, I just did that, you know? And I'm not saying there shouldn't be like checkpoints. Like, I don't want it to be difficult in the way like Zelda 2 is difficult, where it's just frustrating. Or, yeah, it shouldn't be a frustrating difficult. It should be a rewarding difficult. So that is a very big distinction there. And the music being remastered would be phenomenal. Final Fantasy II, great soundtrack. Love the game. So, yeah, I think Final Fantasy II just revamping the battles a bit, revamping the customization, fleshing out the story. I mean, Final Fantasy II has a fantastic story, and just seeing the characters be more fully realized, just making the stakes more emotional, more personal, and the grandiose like tale of Final Fantasy II being felt. It should feel like a struggle against the Empire. Like if this isn't feeling like Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith level Empire fighting, like it's not doing it right. It really isn't. Like make the opening intro for Final Fantasy II, like on the PSP or whatever, make the whole game feel like that. Or better, obviously, because it's on a modern console. And just having a game that really having a remake that really captures the feel of Final Fantasy II is exactly what I want. So let me know down below what you think of Final Fantasy II Remake could entail. Do you agree with me? Especially about the battle system and the customization system. Do you think the customization should be revamped, or do you think it should stay the same? Do you think my skill tree idea was cool, making the different characters like distinct, or do you want them to just be blank slates? And what do you think about combat? Do you want it to be like a more difficult, like Souls-like type combat that's rewarding and difficult? Do you want it to be turn-based? Do you want it to be Final Fantasy VII Remake? Or do you want it to be something entirely new? What do you think would be the best for Final Fantasy II in terms of battles? Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and check out more videos. I'm going to be making, since 3 and 4 kind of already remade, I might do them, but I'll probably hold off for them. But I'm going to be doing like 5, 6, 8, 9, especially 9, since there's probably actually going to be a remake soon. So check that one out next. I'll probably post 9 next. But again, thank you all for watching and have a fantastic day. Peace out, RPG fans.